Welcome to the Revelation and Adventure channel. Today, a big classic of archaeology, the pyramids of Egypt, the Great Pyramid of Khufu, and by extension, the sepulchral function of the pharaoh's pyramids. Today we're going to focus on the Great Pyramid of Khufu. Who was Khufu? Khufu, he's the son of Sneferu, who is Sneferu, so that's his father. Indeed, it was his father who built two pyramids at Dashur, the Red Pyramid, as well as the Bent Pyramid, so Khufu. His reign, it started around 2500, 2600 before Christ. And Khufu, he's also the one who ordered the construction of the Pyramid of Khufu, which we call the Pyramid of Khufu, the Great Pyramid of Giza, to be able to collect and accommodate his remains once the pharaoh leaves the earth to join the kingdom of the beyond. In this video, we are going to see that there are a lot of elements that somewhat contradict the tomb theory, which does not hold up today, if it doesn't hold up. There are a lot of researchers who have written many books, there are many films, documentaries that talk about it. You yourself are passionate, and I'm sure you've already done a lot of research on this subject. In short, it's for you, the enthusiasts, a little reminder about this great classic. And for those who stumble upon the channel for the first time or who are not necessarily familiar with this environment, I hope it will be a nice discovery. We will simply brush a little bit the most important elements that make us think that the pyramids of Egypt, and in any case those of Khufu, are not tombs and were not intended to be. They may have been later, but in any case that was not their primary purpose. Besides, how can one imagine that a pharaoh as grandiose as Khufu, who had the most mysterious building of all humanity erected? It's hard to believe we have nearly nothing from him. No remains, no writing, almost nothing at all. Except for a tiny statue that is in the Cairo Museum and is barely 10 centimeters tall. Already that's very strange. Who says tomb, says sarcophagus, says burial chamber. So, in the Great Pyramid of Giza, it's the upper chamber, which we call the King's Chamber, that is supposed to have housed the body of the deceased. But before he got up there were first trials with the underground chamber. We are told that the construction of the underground chamber happened before the theoretical event. The plans changed and finally, the upper chamber was built. However, the guys, they're not very bright because they waited for the straight corridor from the entrance to the underground chamber, which measures 1 meter 19 by 1 meter 5, to be finished. A bit like an architect who would wait for his building to be finished to say, yeah, actually no, we're going to change the plan. So that really is not very logical. So, without further ado, let's see together why the pyramids of Egypt were not tombs. Let's go. Egyptologists link the pyramids of Egypt to burials, as bodies have been found in pyramids, like that of Neferfre or Riputnub in Abu Sir, for example. Riputnub was the wife of the pharaoh, who was called Niusre. He also had a pyramid in Abu Sir, this time the one in front of which we find the famous cubes of Abu Sir. However, we must distinguish the differences between these different pyramids. The pyramids in which the bodies were found are, in terms of burial, truly legitimate. However, today they are almost completely destroyed. And why are they destroyed? Simply because they were of lesser quality and did not withstand the test of time. Yet, the dates are, in quotes, similar between the different pyramids of Dashur and Giza and those we just mentioned. So, we're looking at an approximate difference of 400 years, yet the gaps in how they've withstood time are really drastic. That pharaohs used pyramids as tombs is not something we can doubt. We will even agree that pharaohs built pyramids. But the pyramids everyone talks about, they are intact and haven't moved an iota all this time. Why do Egyptologists refuse to accept the possibility that there could have been different civilizations that built different types of pyramids in their own way, which have resisted differently over the ages? Because that's exactly what we see. We obviously cannot attribute such different achievements to the same people. There is no doubt that there was a funerary reuse. But let's stop insisting that the primary purpose of the pyramids was indeed funerary. If the pyramids were built well before their official dating, the following peoples or civilizations would have arrived on these awe-struck lands. By these incomprehensible achievements that they would then have legitimately tried to reproduce with the means of the time. The result is simply that they were not up to par in terms of method and knowledge. Even if some pharaohs had built pyramids within sepulchral reach, they did it at a more recent time. On the other hand, what is 100% verified as tombs are indeed the underground tombs of Luxor, among many others. There is no doubt about what is represented. Fabulous complexes with colors still vivid, hieroglyphs and petroglyphs join hands in a high-flying funeral dance. We have before our eyes the most telling details of all dynastic Egyptian life. And when you're there, it doesn't resemble the pyramids at all, neither in terms of decoration nor in terms of architecture. In Luxor, apparently, the tombs were designed so that one could access them to pay tribute to the deceased pharaohs. Beautiful entrances available, a spacious structure, in short, a welcoming environment. Yet in the pyramids, it seems like everything was done to prevent anyone from ever reaching the sarcophagus. A cramped, narrow passage that required contortion, not an inviting place for people of the time to view the remains. Change of ritual, you might say. In 2500 before Christ, people were possibly more discreet, while in 1500 they were less so. That's possible. And if we listen to our common sense, skeptics of alternative discourses will say, you have your common sense. It's not necessarily ours, so stop bothering us with your nonsense. But aside from the usual aggression that characterizes them in this debate, let's just admit that it probably wasn't built for similar purposes. I mentioned a sarcophagus earlier. In the tombs of the Valley of the Kings, the Valley of the Queens, or the Valley of the Nobles in Luxor, there are tons of them. In the pyramids, it's a whole different story. In Giza, there is one in the King's Chamber. In Khufu, in the Queen's Chamber, there is nothing. And what about the pyramids? In Dashur, over there, nothing either. Nothing in the Bent Pyramid closed to the public, and even less in the Red Pyramid, which is open to the public. In the Red Pyramid of Dashur, attributed to Sneferu, there are 3 burial chambers, 2 in which there is nothing, and 1 that doesn't even have a floor. In fact, it doesn't even have a floor. But if we were to remove the wooden staircase that allows modern access, we wouldn't be able to get in. Once again, no traces of pharaohs in the pyramids. However, if these pyramids were not royal tombs, structurally, we have great similarities that show that their purposes were identical. I'm talking in particular about the Great Gallery of Giza and the burial chambers of the Red Pyramid of Dashur, with, in both cases, these superb corbel arches. In terms of structure, by the way, the complexity of construction is perplexing, for example, in the Great Pyramid. Why build such restrictive elements when they can't even be seen with the naked eye? There must be a reason, but what is it? We will refrain from speculating on that, as the debate is endless. So, What can be said about these 5 levels above the king's chamber, the upper chamber of the pyramid of Khufu, which are invisible and are overshadowed by a rafter? Moreover, each of the 5 ceilings is around 2 meters thick. Why go into such complexity with such volumes? Whereas for supposed relief chambers, we could very well have been satisfied with volumes and thicknesses less than the 2 meters that are present here. Besides, speaking of relief chamber, that doesn't hold up either. Why doesn't it hold up? Because we have these relief chambers above the king's chamber. Okay. However, we also have the queen's chamber, which is located in extension of the arrival at the bottom of the great gallery at the top of the ascending corridor. In the queen's chamber, there are no relief chambers, but there are rafters indicating text incomplete. It means that the presence of the rafter defines the fact that the queen's chamber was fully completed. The project was finished. However, the queen's chamber is well below the high chamber of the king's chamber. So it is even more subject to the pressures and weight exerted within the pyramid. So if we had wanted to create relief chambers to alleviate the pressure above the king's chamber, we would have had to pay even more particular attention to the possible pressures applied to the queen's chamber. However, this is not the case. The queen's chamber, it has no relief chambers. So the theory of relief chambers to justify what is above the king's chamber. Again, it doesn't hold up. There is also the question of the use of materials, which raises many questions. Why incorporate granite into a project that could have been done entirely in limestone? In putting all this end to end, we seem to be facing a building much more sophisticated than what is officially admitted today. There are a lot of theories, both academic and alternative, whether it's Zayawas, whether it's all the Egyptology teams, whether it's also, for example, the teams from the Scan Pyramid project who recently discovered a large cavity above. We don't know if it's horizontal or parallel. At the Great Gallery, there's Graham Hancock, there's Robert Bovell. There are many researchers who have done very advanced work. So I wholeheartedly encourage you to go and look a little more in detail, because otherwise we would be here talking together for hours and hours. And all these things combined, the complexity of the building, the complexity of the approach, the systematic misunderstanding of everyone, and the excessive simplification of some to explain and highlight some elements of the pyramid, make it so that today we do not know who built the pyramid, we do not know when it was built, and we especially do not know what it was used for. In any case, we cannot decently say that this pyramid, this absolutely sublime work, had as its primary vocation to accommodate a tiny sarcophagus that barely passes the width of the corridors leading to the different rooms. So, with all these elements put end to end, not to mention the hundreds and hundreds of other explanations and demonstrations by very serious researchers, we can say today that the pyramids of Egypt were not tombs. There you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, as usual, feel free to subscribe, share on social media, and leave your comments. As for me, since it's Sunday the 12th, I'm about to leave for the airport to catch a flight and join my next group, that I will guide through the mysteries and secrets of the pharaohs and ancient Egypt. And from there, I'll try to shoot as much footage as possible to bring back to you from absolutely all the sites we're going to visit. By the way, please check the short video I posted on Friday morning. We're going to do a special frequently asked questions where you can ask all the questions you want about the different sites. So the same. I'm going to put the link to this little video in the description. You'll be able to go there and comment whatever you want. And when I'm in Egypt, I don't know yet which day, if I'll do it, from Giza, Luxor or Aswan. Anyway, no matter, I'm going to take the most interesting questions and I'm going to try to answer them as well as I can. Once again, thank you for your loyalty, likes, subscriptions and everything. Thank you all. And I'll see you very soon for new videos. Bye.